Cyberpunk 2077 offers a lot of fascinating characters. Last time we took a closer look at Judy Alvarez and Evelyn Parker. This time, we'll be diving into Meredith Stout. First, a spoiler warning. There will definitely be spoilers here, so you've been explicitly warned. Let's get into Meredith Stout. We were introduced to her for the first time in 2018 in the Cyberpunk 2077 demo, so she was revealed pretty early on. Before the game was released, a lot of people, including myself, thought Meredith would be a key character in the overall plot of Cyberpunk 2077 and that there might be a deeper romance with her. But that turned out to be wrong. While Meredith is somewhat important, she doesn't play a major role and isn't crucial to the game's story. There is a romance, though. It's intense, but not very deep. More on that later. Her corporate career is a bit of a mystery, but it's safe to say she probably decided early on to prioritize her career at Militech, one of the world's largest military corporations. To rise within a company like that, you pretty much have to. Her goal is clearly to climb the corporate ladder and make it to the top. By the time we meet her, she holds the position of Senior Operations Manager. In this role, she's not just taking orders, but also giving them with her own team and possibly an entire department under her. Her responsibilities clearly include internal investigations, though it's not so clear if she has other duties. Meredith seems to do her job professionally. She always stays focused on the mission and never loses sight of the goal, but she's not afraid to get her hands dirty. In fact, she seems to enjoy it to some degree. She's the kind of person who will chase you across all of Night City, or even to hell if it benefits her. If you're not with Militech, you're against Meredith, which makes you a potential enemy. Unless, of course, you can be useful to her. Then you might be worth using, at least for as long as you're beneficial. We see this clearly in how she deals with V. It's hard to tell how old she is, but I'd guess she's somewhere between 30 and 40. However, it's possible she's much older and has undergone age-altering procedures. I'll explain why I think that later. She's definitely a very attractive yet cold and dangerous woman with a certain noir charm. She has a distinctive tattoo under her left ear. It's a broken heart with the words "Never Again" written beneath it. The meaning of the tattoo is up for speculation, but it's likely that Meredith experienced an unhappy or unrequited love in her younger years. It suggests that at some point she redirected all her focus onto her career and has since preferred intense flings over committed relationships. This brings us to the romance you can have with Meredith. It's intense, even wild. Meredith's tastes in the bedroom lean toward leather and latex. The spiked collar and her outfit make it clear that the usually prim and controlled Meredith can get pretty wild and unruly. It doesn't matter whether V is male or female in terms of triggering the romance, but it does change how the experience plays out, as Paul Sasko confirmed.
Because I really wanted to be like in a way that actually like if you're a guy, actually that sex scene looks completely different than you're a girl when you come in here. And Meredith is actually like approaching it in a different way, sort of, right? So like she's more dominating when you're a guy, and she was more submissive when you're a female. And like when you watch those two scenes actually together next to each other, you will actually see basically what I meant.
The experience isn't always the same. When playing as male V, Meredith takes a more dominant role, while a female V encounters a more submissive side of Meredith, dominant toward men, submissive toward women. This could tie into the reason behind her heart tattoo. The romance reveals that Meredith has more ink. On her right upper arm, she has a blooming rose tattoo with the number 26 beside it, possibly indicating her age at the time. The rose has deep shadows, suggesting it's fully bloomed, ready to wither. This could symbolize a life stage, possibly a time before her life became consumed by her career. Her third tattoo is the largest, located above her chest. It's a skull with eagle wings. Initially, I thought it represented a military unit, which would make sense since Militech recruits a lot of ex-military personnel. But looking closer, you can see the skull is crying, and there's a date, 2020. This makes it unlikely to be related to a group. It's more plausible that it represents a significant event in her life, enough for her to mark it with such a dominant tattoo. Skulls generally symbolize death, rebellion, or transformation. The tears could represent mourning or loss, or even joy. Wings usually symbolize freedom and independence, but they can also stand for pride, protection, or clarity. It's hard to pinpoint exactly what the tattoo means, but something critical likely happened in 2020 for Meredith. There's a hint from the community. I can't remember who said it, but someone mentioned seeing Meredith at a samurai concert. I visited the scene where we're inside Johnny's memories. It's the last samurai reunion show at The Hammer. There, you meet two groupies. Neither looks like Meredith, but one of them does have her tattoos. We see the skull with wings, the rose, and the number 26. Everything matches. If we assume this is Meredith, then she'd be at least 83 years old, which is totally possible. The tattoo would then clearly reference the 2020 Samurai Reunion Tour. This would suggest she was once a groupie who drastically changed her life afterward. When you compare the young woman to Meredith, it's hard to see a clear resemblance. If you look closely, there are some similarities. The shape and style of her eyes and ears, her cheekbones, and her forehead could be the same, but other features, like her eye color, nose, chin, and lips, are completely different. The young woman also has a distinctive tattoo on her right lower leg, which Meredith doesn't have. You could argue that Meredith had extensive cosmetic procedures to look the way she does in 2077. In the world of Cyberpunk, that's not far-fetched. She might have had the tattoo removed too, but there's a lot of speculation here. Usually, CD Projekt makes it pretty clear when they're hinting at the same person. A good example is the samurai fan we meet later in 2077 as a vendor. He's aged, but you can still recognize his features. CD Projekt could have given the younger version more of Meredith's known traits, and everything would have been clear, just like with the samurai superfan. It would have been a neat connection for a minor character, but they didn't do that. So either that's not Meredith, or there's just some missing context, a key piece of information that would make the connection. But after all these years, no one has found anything on the subject. There's a chance Meredith was meant to play a bigger role. Her character is well developed, and details like her broken heart tattoo with the words "never again" are unusual for a character with such little screen time. It feels like more was planned for her. In Cyberpunk 2077, it's noticeable that Militech is always present, yet there's no dedicated quest line that lets us dive deeper into the Militech Corpos. But there's an area in the Militech HQ in Night City that suggests something was planned. Meredith would have been the perfect entry point into a potential Militech quest, and throughout that storyline, CD Projekt could have easily dropped the clues that would prove the two women are the same person. It would have been a pretty shocking revelation fitting CD Projekt style. It's also interesting that they gave this groupie a dialogue line.
"You're wasting your lives following us around like dogs."
What crawled up your ass?
Johnny's comment may or may not be true, but in this context it feels completely meaningless. It serves no real purpose. It's optional, and it doesn't matter if you talk to her or not. But if this was Meredith, that small dialogue would carry enormous significance. It could have been the trigger for her drastic change in character. Imagine that. In a questline with Meredith, it turns out her path was largely shaped by a rocker boy named Johnny Silverhand. The irony would have been incredible. I can easily imagine CD Projekt considering this direction at some point. Maybe it was even planned for the main game but got cut for some reason. Or perhaps it was an idea for the second expansion which got cancelled. Who knows? For my part, I agree with that Chum's theory. This was definitely Meredith Stout. It just fits too well within the cyberpunk world. A young, rebellious Meredith who idolized samurai, and probably Johnny Silverhand too, for their songs and the message behind them. She must have been over the moon when the band had their reunion in 2020. She was 26 years old in the prime of her life, and everything was going great. For 3 years, she followed the band everywhere. Her biggest idol was the rocker boy Johnny Silverhand, who screamed his disdain for the Corpos from the stage. But then everything changed. Her idol called her a whining little puppy, telling her to get her life together and piss off. A few hours later, Johnny Silverhand was reported dead. He had lost the final battle against the corporations. For Meredith, her world came crashing down. She realized that no one would ever defeat the corporations, not even the biggest rocker boy, and certainly not a puppy from Night City. That's how I imagine it, at least. She probably marched straight to the nearest tattoo studio. In that context, the broken heart tattoo makes a lot of sense. It was a love that was shattered, and she would never let it happen again. You don't have to agree with my interpretation. It could also just be a tattoo asset placed incorrectly. However, this interpretation gives Meredith a lot more depth for me, and I think it's at least likely that this idea was considered at some point. Aside from whether we've already seen young Meredith through Johnny's eyes, which would mean we had a little fling with an at least 83-year-old lady, the interesting question is what the future holds for her. Meredith's future depends on how successful she was in the operation involving Anthony Gilchrist, which in turn depends on how you handled yourself during the quest, The Pickup. Meredith either comes out of the situation as a total winner or a complete loser. If she wins, she's promoted to government relations executive. We find that out in the news clip here.
Police Commissioner Coleridge and Militech Government Relations Executive Meredith Stout were in attendance. Officers in the NCPD put their lives on the line for us every day. They defend all Night citizens against gang violence, nomad outlaws, and cyber psycho attacks. Thanks to Militech's Centaur-class exosuits, they can keep themselves safe, and all the rest of us even safer.
In this position, she's responsible for lobbying, maintaining direct connections with government agencies, and ensuring compliance with legal regulations. She has clearly moved into upper management. It's a meteoric career, and she's probably not done yet. However, if she loses, it's not just her career that's over. She loses her life too. She ends up in the harbor with concrete shoes. As you can see, her end was not exactly pleasant. Her head is shaved, and the marks on her face suggest she was tortured. It's likely that Militech threw her to the Maelstrom gang, as the harbor is in their territory. What's interesting here is that Johnny has a line of dialogue in this scene.
Militech don't forgive. Militech don't forget.
Acquaintance of yours?
Yep. Familiar face from my past life.
It's so strange that he shows up here. It feels unnecessary because there's no real connection between Johnny and Meredith in the game. To me, this is further evidence that more was originally planned. Maybe this scene was supposed to be part of the conclusion of a potential Militech questline. In any case, Meredith can die, which unfortunately means her character is done for. She won't be making any more appearances, as acknowledging her return would invalidate the decisions of a portion of the players, and CD Projekt likely won't do that. It's a shame because I think Meredith's story could have been really interesting. They could have done something bold here. For example, they could have allowed you to form a deep relationship with Meredith, similar to Judy or Pan Am, and then had one of your decisions lead to her tragic end, without you even intending it. That would have completely changed the situation. V would be burdened with the guilt of Meredith's death, and Johnny, who set the whole thing in motion, would be along for the ride. A double guilt in one body. Now that would have fit perfectly into the Cyberpunk universe. Now it's your turn. What do you think about Meredith Stout? Drop a comment. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Your support really helps the channel grow, and I appreciate every single one of you. See you in the next video. Take care, and until next time.